Good morning.
Good morning.
I am always so pleasantly amazed and surprised when we first come in. I'll say, hi, there may be 2 or 3 people putting the coffee together, practicing. And then at some point, whoo, you show up, you're here, and it's amazing. And I think to myself, I didn't see you come in. Where were you? Where was I? I missed it. I missed the whole thing. So welcome. It's one of the great joys, I think, and the mysteries of ministry, to suddenly have a connection of consciousness, of love, and of joy where you didn't see it before. It didn't occur, and yet it was there the whole time. It was just that I might have not been looking. I might have not been ready to receive, but it was always there. So remember that as we move through our time this morning. And it's just a good thing, I think, to remember, because very often we don't always see with that third eye. We're busy seeing, where are our feet? Am I going in the right direction? Pick a category. But seeing with the third eye is seeing from that Christed of ourselves, coming up higher in the way we look at life and the way we be life. This morning, I'm going to take a slightly different tact, but I just want to kind of review for those of you that might not have been here the last couple of weeks. And for those of you that were, don't roll your eyes and say, oh, she's not going to walk through all that again, is she? Well, sometimes we forget, don't you know? So let's just, humor me as we walk through this time of Lent and a review. Okay? We have 2 more Sundays in Lent. Next Sunday's Palm Sunday, and after that's Easter Sunday. And so what is this Sunday? This is the Sunday commonly called Passion Sunday, or the Sunday of Overcoming. And what I'm going to bring forth to you this morning is titled Putting Feet to Your Prayers. And it also will be in keeping with our walking through Lent. We've talked about a variety of aspects of how we be, and we overlaid Lent on top of that as a perfect time of preparation for the transformation of Easter. And very often, we had talked about, well, that transformation is significant to our foundation, and we talk about a transformation in consciousness. That is our metaphysical aspect to the Easter biblical story. It's very deep, our story, and some of you will say, what's with our story? I thought that was the story of Jesus' crucifixion and his resurrection. Yes, and is that not our story? Is that not our story? And that's how I'd like you to walk through this Lenten season and as we approach Easter. This is a transformation and uplifting in consciousness that we are discussing as we move through this time of Lent. And for this community in particular, it's extremely important right now. You are in a time of major transition and have been for a while. And I'll bet also there's not a person in any one of these seats that isn't going through some sort of life transition right at the moment. And you may recall we talked about transition having 3 different aspects or 3 associated aspects. Sometimes that door closes and then we walk around in the hallway or the void or the wilderness, bumping into ourselves and our mortality. It sometimes is not a very pleasant place. And then the window opens. And very often we like for the door to shut and the window to open, please, and let's skip this time in the middle. Well, guess what? We're as a community, and you may be individually, in the time in the middle. And we call that transition. And we are moving through the transition with the ever knowing there is always a transformation if we are willing to do the work. And part of that work comes from understanding that you and I, right here, right now, are co-creating, that we are always co-creating. Now think about that. 24/7, our thoughts are prayers, and we are co-creating with the Creator of how we wish to experience this life. So you can choose, and see, therein lies the rub, how you wish, and if you wish, to choose in a way that's beneficial, or do you wish to choose in a way that brings more suffering, that's challenging, The choice is ours, but the co-creation never stops. So think of it. You're walking around co-creating all the time. You can sit on the couch and you're co-creating. You are co-creating with your thoughts and your feelings and your ideas and your expression of those. So some of us who like to think, well, putting feet to the prayers, that's just, when I go out and march for something or stand against something, or I do in service. I'm in service to something. Okay, putting feet to your prayers is when you consciously, in your ordinary, sometimes mundane life, you choose to co-create from a Christed self, from your soul. You choose to co-create your very next thought, your very next action based on that thought, and you choose to do it from a higher level of consciousness. Or as I'm fond of saying, or not. But you always have the choice, and you are always co-creating. Now, when you think about the fact that we're always co-creating, some of you may go, "Ooh, that's a heavy one. Always? Couldn't I have a little time out? How about some time off?" The answer is no, my friends. You are always co-creating, so make your choice. Are you going to co-create from a higher consciousness? And are you going to put feet to those prayers? Now, what do I mean by feet to those prayers? Do I mean that you would have to go out and hold a sign for something or against something? Not necessarily. You see, that's where we think the demonstration, our fifth principle, by the way, it is not enough to know the truth. One must know the truth and demonstrate that knowing. And somewhere along the line, the word demonstrate got out of whack. You can demonstrate in a very active fashion, as in physically demonstrate something, or you can demonstrate something through the way you are, the way you be in life, the way you choose to be. The demonstration, my friends, is in the choice. And for some reason, especially in our culture, we think the demonstration is in activism and only activism. I remember years ago in Unity, when I had several friends who were very much into the greening of America. Remember that expression? And Unity, right even to this day, is very, I'll say, almost proud of its role in the protection of our earth, in the manifestation of a loving, peaceful earth. And I think that that's wonderful. That, my friends, is collective consciousness. That's when, in the early days, you may have known 1, 2, maybe 3 people who were into the greening of America, thought it was a nice idea, but you could take it down the street, I'm not ready for that. And here we are today, and think how much it is a part of our Unity culture and our culture as a whole. And that's because those people on the forefront, those 1 or 2 or 3, decided they would make a choice in their consciousness to move it out, no matter what anyone else thought or said, in the protection and the defense and the growth of our earth, Mother Earth. And then the collective consciousness started to come on board. But here's the lesson. The shift in consciousness occurred in an individual, and then the collective came as each individual collectively made the shift in their consciousness. And when we choose to make that shift in our consciousness, that is feet to our prayers. That is not just wandering around pillar to post, hoping that, oh, well, maybe that'll happen. That's a nice idea. Isn't that a nice idea? That's a grand idea, that whole greening thing. I'm glad that they stood up for that. So my question and my challenge for you is, what do you stand up for, and how do you stand up? And remember, my friends, I am not talking about standing up like I'm doing right now. I'm talking about consciousness shifting so that you stand and you live in the truth of your being. That is when you put feet to the prayers. You make the conscious choice that you are going to live your life from a consciousness that is uplifted, from a consciousness that says, I am here to serve. And many of us don't know how to serve, or we don't know what it is we're serving. What does that mean, to serve? Well, I'll give you one fine example, and I think I may have given it to you before. When you have a consciousness of service, you say to yourself, I am going to meet the Christ in you. And I am going to look and see the Christ in you. Then you are in a consciousness of sacred service. You are viewing the Christ in the other individual. And what are you really viewing? The Christ in yourself. It is that Christed connection that we all have and we can use if we choose to. So the feet to the prayers is making the conscious choice. I am going to be in service from the Christ of my being. And one excellent way of doing that from a practical point of view, since we are practical Christianity, is be fully present when you're with someone. Be fully present. Are you here this morning fully present? Or are you at Giant or Whole Foods or Harris Teeter in your head thinking, gee, I gotta remember to pick up that turkey for lunch. You're not fully present, but you've made a choice and you have co-created. You're at Harris Teeter picking up turkey while I'm up here doing this. And the point is the point is that if you're fully present, whether it be here or whether it be to your family, to your spouse, to your children, when you're fully present, it means that all of you is present, that you are seeing the other person as the Christ, as your brother and sister in Christ, as fully connected. And I kid you not, the difficult part can come when we are asked to be that Christ itself with our, quote, enemies. And you know what Jesus said, love your enemies as yourself. That's the famous 11th commandment. Do you love your perceived enemies? Can you be with those people and see the blessing? And I know that takes work. I know that can be extremely difficult. And let's shift it to even more difficult. Can you be loving to the part of yourself that you disrespect? No, some of you say. I don't disrespect any parts of myself. Well, I don't know that you do or you don't. But I do know this, every one of us has areas in our life that we are working on, that don't quite meet up to our standards of what is best. And I'm challenging you to look at those parts of yourself that you're so critical of, that you're so doubtful about, and bless them. And be in sacred service, putting feet to your prayers to make the conscious choice to love those parts of yourself. And when you're in relationships, which is, oh my goodness, are relationships not the testing ground for what we believe? All relationships, particularly in family. Do you know what you believe? You can start there. And do you practice it, which is what this whole idea about feet to prayers is. Most of us, I believe, that are sitting here today, we know what we believe. We have core values. We have an understanding of how we view life. Do you practice it? And I know some of you will say, well, I try. And you know my dad used to say to me, and I'll bring him out, hello, Pop. He would say to me, I'll say, I try. And he'll say, well, try harder, girl. And so what he meant at that time was literally, get it moving and try harder because you're not meeting my standards. But it always stuck with me that the underlying message was, give it another go. Give it another go. Ramp it up a little. You may say I'm willing to try. I say it all the time. But when the rubber meets the road, am I willing to do it on a 24/7 basis? And the answer for me some days is no, I can't. And under that I can't generally is I won't. I don't want to. I don't choose to do it today, so leave me alone. Well, good. That's just fine. How are you going to live the rest of that day? You are co-creating, remember, 24/7? And you have just thumbed your nose at the possibility of coming from a peaceful higher self. You have said, no, I'm going to live in my doubt and my fear and my anger and my insecurity. And I think I might even like it some days. Fine. What a choice you've made. Isn't that lovely? You're going to do that again? And some of us will say, no, I remembered that lesson. I won't do that again. And then a year goes by, 2 years goes by, and boom, all over again, we do it. We choose to do it. There are no feet to that prayer. So feet to prayer doesn't mean I choose it and I'm proud of it and it's negative. Feet to prayer means I choose to go from my higher self in all things. I choose that. I live that. I see that. And I co-create that in my life. And also remember, it's your day-to-day, everyday life. We are not all Gandhi or Einstein or Mother Teresa. Putting feet to your prayers doesn't mean you have to have some dynamic, dramatic demonstration. It means day in, day out, moment to moment, we choose peace. We are peace. We choose love. We are love. And we do it in the most ordinary choices, in the most ordinary ways. And that, my friends, is true demonstration of feet to prayers. So as we move forward in this Lenten time, we are now entering a very moving time in Lent, and I encourage all of you to read about Palm Sunday, because we're going to talk about Palm Sunday and what it means metaphysically and what it can mean to you. And then we'll move into the Easter season, which I know you all love and have a very special service. The service and the love come from you every single day in the choices that you make. So choose from a co-creative level, a higher level of consciousness. And some of you might say, well, that's pretty obvious. I hope that there's